Buying a new home is a huge and exciting investment, especially for a young family. But what happens when your dream home becomes a nightmare? Imagine purchasing a vehicle only to find a gruesome surprise. All of this and more on today's most amazing top 10 list. Number 10. In the summer of 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus had just bought their new 6-bedroom, $1.3 million home in Westfield, New Jersey, and began to do some renovations prior to them moving in. While sorting through some mail, they found a small white envelope addressed to the new owner, so they opened it up to begin reading. The letter started off with warm greetings but quickly turned strange. The couple knew the letter was directed to them because it had mentioned the vehicle they drove, the couple's children, as well as the writer's distaste for the renovations that were being done. If this letter wasn't creepy enough, it was signed off as The Watcher. I cannot explain to you guys how quickly I would have had that house back up for sale if I received this letter. Over the next few weeks, the family continued to receive more letters from The Watcher, and the letters began to include more personal information. The couple was unsure of where to go or if they should continue their move into this new house, which I would absolutely say no. The people began to speculate who the Watcher could be, but there was no concrete evidence. Number 9. CODY James and Gary Harker were longtime friends who were working together on Christmas Day in 1979 in Moline, Illinois. They left CODY's shop to head out in the truck to deliver an air compressor to Rock Island, Illinois, and then head to pick up a $500 payment for it in Davenport, Iowa, which they never made it to. The black truck they were driving was found almost 2 months after they had gone missing, and subsequently was put up for auction after not being claimed for 40 days. The bodies of CODY and Gary were found in the truck bed by the men who ended up purchasing it. 25 years after their deaths, the case was still unsolved. A friend of CODY and Gary brought police a roll of film that had been entrusted to him by the men. CODY and Gary gave their friend the film all those years earlier, and they said, "If anything happens to us, develop this film." It is crazy to think that this friend waited 25 years to spill this tea, and that perhaps the men knew what was about to happen to them. Unfortunately, the film didn't give police any solid leads, although the case continues to be investigated. Number 8. On August 6, 1930, New York Supreme Court Judge Joseph Force Crater left a Manhattan restaurant and was never seen again. Joseph had been spending the summer with his wife, Stella Mance Wheeler, in a vacation home they owned in Maine. Joseph had to leave Maine to travel back to New York on August 3rd, but told Stella he would only be a few days. On August 6th, the day of his disappearance, Joseph purchased a ticket for a Broadway performance and headed out for a pre-show dinner where he met his friend, attorney William Klein, along with one of Joseph's many girlfriends, showgirl Sally Lou Ritz. Witnesses stated that Joseph left the restaurant at approximately 9:15 p.m., which was after the start of the show he had planned to attend. In January of 1931, almost 6 months after his disappearance, Stella moved back into their apartment where she reported she found 4 envelopes. One of the envelopes was in Joseph's handwriting and was a list of everyone who owed him money. It was signed, "Love Joe, this is all confidential," and included a messy note that either says, "I am weary" or "I'm very sorry," which either way is a pretty menacing last message for a grieving wife to receive. In 2005, authorities received a potential break in the case when a 91-year-old woman named Stella Ferrucci Good had passed away, leaving a note sealed in an envelope that read, "Do not open until my death." Inside the letter, she implicated 3 men in Joseph's disappearance, but the claims of this letter have never been proven. Number 7. On June 3, 2011, in Bloomington, Indiana, 20-year-old university student Lauren Spierer disappeared after a night out with friends. Lauren was from Greenburgh, New York, but had been attending Indiana University. A few hours after being seen leaving her apartment, her boyfriend texted her only to receive a response several hours later from an employee of a bar who had found her phone. Not much is known about Lauren's disappearance, but it said she left her apartment around 12:30 a.m., stopped at the bar where her phone was found, and was last seen around 4:30 a.m. leaving a friend's off-campus apartment. Over the course of the years, Lauren's family has tried following every lead they had to find out what happened to Lauren, but have yet to find the answers that they deserve. Number 6. This is a story that really gives me the creeps. On April 20th, 1989, Patricia Bernadette Meehan was in a car accident on Highway 200 near Circle, Montana. Witnesses saw her driving her car on the wrong side of the road, which led to her crashing into an off-duty police dispatcher, Carol Heights. Carol was luckily uninjured in the crash and got out of her vehicle right away. Upon exiting her vehicle, Carol saw Patricia also exit her vehicle, walk up to her, and just stare at her without saying a word. Patricia then walked away, climbing over a fence, and stood staring at the accident before walking away and disappearing, which is definitely enough to give me goosebumps. A search began immediately but turned up little results. There have been thousands of reported sightings of Patricia that have potentially given police leads to her whereabouts, but she still has never been found. Number 5. If you've been bored during quarantine, I know that you've turned on Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix and heard the unbelievable story of Lester Eubanks. Lester was a murderer who was convicted and sentenced to prison in 1966 for the killing of a 14-year-old girl named Mary Ellen Diener in Mansfield, Ohio. In December 1973, Lester was part of an honor assignment that gave him an opportunity to be at the mall to do some Christmas shopping. While at the mall, he ended up escaping custody and has been on the run ever since. Through investigations into his family and friends, police were led to a center for troubled youth where he was said to have been working, but Lester was nowhere to be found. The most recent development in this case came recently in 2019 when Lester's biological son agreed to give a DNA sample which could be used to link Lester to recent crimes and maybe give an idea on where he could be hiding. But FBI policy says that you cannot search using another family member's DNA. It's crazy that somebody could be on the run for that long without anybody recognizing or finding them, and it makes me really wonder if anyone in his new life knows about his dark past. Number 4. William Russell Henry was a 57-year-old self-employed landscaper in Tulare, California. On November 5th, 2009, he was last seen at a Home Depot before his truck and trailer were found abandoned and set on fire 4 days later. Upon investigation, the police believe that William was assaulted at his house before going missing, but have not released the evidence that has led them to believe that. William was someone who was well liked by those around him and well known as he had done landscaping for a lot of people around town. Police haven't been able to identify who he was seen with at the Home Depot before disappearing. I wonder if the person he was with is responsible for his disappearance and that's why they haven't come forward with any information. Either way, it's pretty unsettling. Number 3. On November 3rd, 2015, in Spokane, Washington, Deanna Marie Hastings left a note saying she was running a quick errand but never returned home. Her boyfriend found her car shortly after her disappearance with her phone and purse still inside. Police tracked activity on her credit cards after she had gone missing, which led them to Randy Riley. Randy had stolen Deanna's credit cards and began using them but denied any involvement in her disappearance. He said he'd met her previously and that she was very drunk and that they had spent a few hours together. A day after their meeting, he said he found her coat on the side of the road with her wallet still inside, which is when he decided to take her cards. Randy was charged with identity theft and possession of stolen property, but is not a suspect in her disappearance. Number 2. This story brings us back to California, but this time to Vallejo. On August 8, 1994, John Wagner Jr. witnessed his drug supplier, Bradley Hoover, commit a murder. John was obviously traumatized by what he had witnessed, but fully cooperated and gave testimony to police. On November 2, 1994, which was John's 26th birthday, his mother called him to wish him a happy birthday. His mother explains that he was still really frightened about what he had witnessed and was having a hard time coping, which I feel like is a pretty reasonable reaction to what he had gone through. Unfortunately, this phone call with his mother was the last time anyone has heard from him. There's not a lot of evidence in his disappearance, and it's unclear whether it was linked to his testimony about the murder he witnessed, as Bradley Hoover didn't end up getting convicted until 2011, but police are still investigating every avenue possible. Number 1. This next one I'm sure you guys have heard about before. On November 24th, 1971, a man who said his name was Dan Cooper boarded a flight from Portland to Seattle. Once the plane was in the air, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant who assumed the note was Cooper just shooting his shot and giving her his phone number, and she dropped it into her purse without even opening it. Cooper then leaned over and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb," which is the worst thing for a flight attendant to hear. After showing her the bomb, he began to list his demands: $200,000, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane for when they arrived. Cooper's been described as being incredibly calm and polite, even though it seems pretty rude to hijack an airplane. At 5:39 p.m., the aircraft landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. After receiving the items he had requested, Cooper ordered all the passengers and some of the flight attendants to leave the plane. The plane then took off again, and when it landed in Reno, Nevada, Cooper wasn't on it. The search for Cooper was one of the most extensive in US history. To this day, there are a lot of theories about who this man was and what happened to them, but none of them have been proven yet. I wonder if we'll ever get the answers we're looking for. Alright guys, that's it for today's list. I have been your host, Olivia Kozlowski, and until next time, I'd love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell, and I'll see you soon. What is that? He's in the Christmas spirit. Yeah, do I just go whenever?
Yeah, maybe, right.
Oh, sweet. Going to what was about to happen.